Informative, educational, objective, inclusive, comprehensive. This is Progress Report. Updates and conversations from the Government Information Service.
Good day and welcome to Progress Report, updates and conversations from the Government Information Service. My name is Ivan Connor, my lovely co-host Gleneva Hodge, and we have a very special episode for you today. First time, 3 guests in the studio at one point. We're expanding.
I know, getting cozy.
Getting cozy, getting close. We have with us some members of the Minimum Wage Committee. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. In the person of Dr. Wycliffe Foy, somebody I have great admiration and respect for. I told his daughter most recently that he's my spirit animal. I'll get to that a little later. Mrs. Melisha McCoon-Niles and Mr. Glenville Hodge. I don't know the relation, Glenville Hodge. You might want to explain that if there's any. If not,
I can have to ask Glenn.
You can have to ask Glenn.
Not this Glenn.
Not this Glenn. All right. But we're here to talk about a very interesting topic, if I might say. Minimum wage.
Interesting and welcomed.
Welcomed. Anguilla. Really, I had a few conversations today when I told my acquaintances that we are doing this filming today. They was like, why would Anguilla want a minimum wage? And then somebody has the same conversation saying it's about time. There's a sharp divide. How do we get at that? How we look at supply and demand, where that line falls and what that price do. Is this going to impact employment numbers and people's ability to make a living? This is going to better it. We don't know. But from all conversations that I've heard thus far from my spirit animal in the person of Mr. Dr. Wycliffe Foy, what I love about him, when I say he's my spirit animal, he's not shying away from it. He's not shying away from making the tough decisions, running the gauntlet, going the full gamut to make sure that what decision is made is a decision that everybody wants to be made and nobody gonna call his name after when he's long and gone and try to happy grandchildren and great grandchildren. And that's why he's my spirit animal, because I think it's high time we don't shy away from these things. It's a topic, it's a conversation that should have happened a long time. I know Gleneva has a lot of interest in this, and I often tell people practically every show, right? You might see me sitting here, but this is her show. She calls all the shots, I just the face. I think I look good. I think that's what it is.
This is how Ivan throws me under the bus.
In a good sense.
So, I let him say that, and then we just run with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's get into it. Minimum Wage Committee. Mm-hmm. What are your roles on this committee? How were you selected to this committee? Let's just have a little talk about that.
Well, we didn't volunteer.
And there you have it.
We didn't volunteer. We were chosen by EXCO and we accepted.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Our rules are being developed as we go along.
Okay.
You can't write your rules in stone.
Okay.
It's going to set no territory, and you're going to go beyond that territory. So, you got rules. You got people on the literature review committee. You have people on the public information committee. Those kind of things. But whatever your rule is at a particular time, you do it. You go, you define your rule, you put it in stone, so you start to stay in your lane. Then you want to just stay in your lane. You want to participate in every way you can,
Okay.
I like that. And does the committee, and I can appreciate that, but does the committee have the usual chairperson, someone who chairs the entire committee. And I know you said that you were chosen. You didn't volunteer, you were chosen, and I'm certain that you were chosen to represent. We are speaking about minimum wage. So you're either representing a particular sector, or what is it that you were chosen to be on that committee to do?
So we were all chosen based on our different sectors, our involvement in community, and where we are within communities.
Okay.
So for example, myself in hospitality, Mr. Glenville here in construction, and so on and so on. We have persons from the financial services unit, we have persons from
National interest.
yes, a complete national interest group.
Okay.
We do have a chair, the esteemed Mr. Foy, and we do have a vice chair who is Ms. Jacqueline Bryan Niles.
Okay.
Other than those two, everybody else just moves along, and our rules are not stamped in stone.
Members of the committee, at the end of the day, we reach one consensus, and that's what it is. All of us, the minimum wage committee, what we produce is what goes for everybody.
I like the sound of that. That sounds pretty much like the principle of collective responsibility, which bounds executive council, ministers, and I learned when I signed my contract with government myself. I can't say anything contrary to that. And I find appreciation for that, because there's no divide and rule where these things are concerned. You said something just now, Mr. Farr. You said national interest.
Yeah, I was chosen in national interest. I guess I retired civil servant, kind of freelancer right now, so I had no real sector. So, angular interest.
Angular interest.
Yes.
Someone with a wealth of knowledge, I am
Exactly.
certain.
Remember
Bringing
that
a
this
lot to the
committee is
table.
void of politics,
Right.
political parties, any outside agendas. This is set up to that at the end of the day, Anguilla and Williams benefit.
Right.
No political party is free
Right.
of everything to do with politics.
And
Excellent.
we're trying to achieve all winners. Not you win, I lose.
Okay.
Because then I'm good.
You want to expound on that, though?
Okay, I'll give you an example. Minimum wage, let's say increase. The wages for the lowest among us go up. That's a cost to the people who pay. So, let's say we lose with regard to that. Well, in the case of businesses, these same people got more money to spend. So, spend some of that money by you, that's a win for you.
Right.
So, that's kind of offset. But as I was driving here, right, and I say this well, I remember. If you work for around 186 US dollars a week, you qualify for universal social levy.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, because about 180 something that takes you which takes you just at the 2,000.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So as you go along, things keep popping up, and you think about it. So you bring in the lower level workers up to the universal social levy. So potentially, we're giving them, we're taking back some. All these things you gotta consider. You know
That's
what I
what I
mean?
was just thinking. Because
So those protections that were in place for persons on the lower end of the pay spectrum, then what you've done is sort of eliminate that those protections.
We ain't there yet. I just tried out there. I just
As an observation.
But
It's
you know,
an interesting observation.
I don't think most people thinking like that. People, when they think in minimum wage, they automatically think in the hotel sector. We just think in tourism, but we have the construction sector represented here. I mean, government are civil servants, they are salary workers, so there's no minimum wage there, I would assume. But then you have caretakers, you have mechanics, you have multiplicity
in retail.
Yeah, you have a multiplicity
Retail,
of
you
disciplines.
have domestic workers, you have the ferry boat boat operators, you have a lot of people to think about, because we don't realize that it's just more than the ones that we see. Now, would you think that it also has to include the ferryboat operators?
No,
It'll also have to include the porters. It'll also have to include the porters on the airport. It'll also have to include the baggage handlers. All of these persons, the minimum wage has to affect positively.
I realize that Ivan wants to take a pause.
Yeah, because this is a lot more than I thought.
It really is. And I've heard, talks about, was it the minister when he was here, but whether or not you should do minimum wage and take it in a sectorial
form.
A sectorial form. So if you're going to implement minimum wage, maybe on a rolling scale, then you start with the hospitality industry and then you move over into another industry. Is that something that the committee is looking at, considering, or are you looking at straight across the board one flat minimum wage no matter which sector you're in?
Well, let's say for argument's sake that you're considering a flat rate. You got to analyze the different sectors anyway. So you must have sectorial analysis.
Correct.
Well, what the final product is, well, we'll come to that sooner or later. But you have to analyze the sectors. You spoke just now about the hotel sector and the workers there. Let's say they are the lowest paid workers on the island, right? So if you focus on them alone, right? And let's say you're moving them from point A to point B, right? And you're saying that's the minimum wage for them. Well, you're gonna need another minimum wage then for the lowest workers just above them,
Right.
who have always been above them, because you can't say that's the minimum wage for another sector that traditionally has been working for more than them.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
You could say it, of course,
But
which is the ramifications after you do it, So sectorial is important. Analytically, what happens at the end of the day, left to be seen, but you must analyze the sectors.
So let me ask a question, and I believe this would go for a number of people in the room. Maybe not here. One of the things that's absent here, we touched on this with the minister. Unions, those sort of group representations. Now, let's take construction. Some might say a construction worker don't have the exposure and the risk as, say, somebody working in the tourism sector.
Depends on who you're talking to.
And exposure and risk how? Yes. What's
Okay.
the exposure and what?
So this is what I wanted to ask and get at. You are drilling deep down into these quote unquote definitions and how they compartmentalize people and those type of things. I would tell you, Ivan, if I buy in fish, mean bargaining price for fish. I went out on one of them fishing boat one time. Is you, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit out there. Nobody else.
I've seen your Island Harbor several times.
Yeah. I ain't arguing with a man for fish. A farmer, if he ain't praying for rain, he planting and watering. I am not arguing with a farmer for the price of his produce. How then, me having those convictions, and I'm looking inward now, why do I think that I should bargain with someone in construction when they got a scale ladder? They using nail gun, they using fumes, they paint, all kind of things. The exposure and the risk. Most of these sectors don't carry insurance. Are these things considered?
Supposed to. You're supposed to have workmen's compensation. It depends on the size of the project. But for residential dwelling, you won't find that. You won't find that somebody... The building will be insured under construction if the person for whom the building is being built has a loan, they have procured a loan, the bank will protect their interests. So they will make sure that the building is insured under construction. Now, it doesn't say that the worker or the workman will be insured. That's the contractors. That's where he has to go down and get contractors all risk insurance for his employees. That's what I would do.
Okay.
And not to say that we do it because sometimes you take a chance, because you can price yourself out of the market, and we have to be very careful how we adjudicate certain things.
Okay, and not jumping ahead. So you talk about pricing yourself out of the market. When contractors, for example, building homes or whatever, they have their labor costs, they have the material that they put in and those type of things. What is foreseen if the minimum wage that would eventually be established kind of puts a bump on the labor costs and the industry? Is it a case now that, you know, there's going to be some sort of mandate you have, because you have workman camp, I believe, you would have, instead of having 5 people on a job, you have people working 2s, you're going to have 6 as opposed to 5, or you might go down to 4 because they know the bump up in the minimum wage kind of pulls that. I think those are concerns that people haven't really got a kind of clear insight as to how minimum wage would impact that. Does it mean more people working or less people working?
Dr. Foy briefly addressed that a couple of days ago in the radio broadcast when he said that because it will impact whether or not you need 4 employees in a store or you need 3.
Okay.
To stock shelves and so on. So you have to balance it out. It's like a balancing act that you have to take on right now.
And since this minimum wage is a national issue, right? A national issue is also employment, right?
Right.
Like I said the other day, sometimes we talk in extremes, right? So at one end of the spectrum, the person who pays minimum wage might say if minimum wage increases or whatever, that's going to drive them out of business, right? The other side might say minimum wage give people more money to spend, you're going to promote your business is going to prosper. The truth lies somewhere between those 2 extremes. So to the matter of detail, if you put in a minimum wage of $100 an hour, God bless us all, right? If you put in a minimum wage, the people in Anguilla will be working, the lowest income in Anguilla will be $100 per hour. That'll be $800 a day. We ain't going to be with that.
That can't work.
No, that can't work. So there's about numbers, right?
Right.
You could go and buy whatever fish you want because the people in God went fishing. And the farmers pray for water, had to water it, however, right? You got limits to that still. You ain't buying fish for whatever them sell you the fish for.
Yeah, buying it every day.
Right.
I ain't buying it every day.
Right?
Exactly.
You know? So you still got to quantify these kind of things. You still got to quantify the risks involved in construction. You still got to quantify the risks involved in the hotels, in that kind of thing.
Right.
It ain't no opinion. You can have an opinion about a lot of things, but it ain't no opinion about coming up with a minimum wage rate. And the last day we didn't talk much about it, but one of our things is to be evidence based. You know, it's an emotional thing to write. It's an emotional thing to, for especially people who really into the working class and that kind of thing, and the social issues.
Looking for the interests, looking out for the interests of the people, not at the bottom of the spectrum, but make sure that we strike a balance where everybody is living, is minimum, it's living, affordable, people are happy with it, and everybody is satisfied.
At least you can have a decent quality of life. And one of the things I've mentioned before is that employers have to also take a moment to retrospect, because you can say, your business needs 4 people to run. You just hypothetically say that, right? But you don't realize that labor is your highest cost one.
Right.
And you don't realize that you really don't need 4 people in your business, right? You also have to, as an employer, understand your business, one, and understand how many people you need in your business, because you could need less than 4 or you could need more than 4. So if you have less than 4, you're going to have people who you're paying $100 an hour to just chill, or you're going to have people who you're paying $100 an hour and they're doing way too much work.
Okay, let me take a pause here. Ladies and gentlemen, for the avoidance of doubt, nobody in this conversation is saying that minimum wage in Anguilla is $100. No sound bites will be taken and put on any WhatsApp media houses saying that the minimum wage committee said minimum wage in Anguilla will be $800 an hour. I repeat, minimum wage will not be $100 per hour. There's no rate set, just we are speaking hypothetically. Let somebody pick up this show halfway and then run to the radio.
Yes.
We are responsible for $100 an hour.
Indeed.
But I kind of wanted to jump in. I'm glad you did that, because I was going to go there, because I know how these things go, and I think it's such an important conversation, and one that I am happy that we can laugh and joke about, but we don't want any misinformation out there and then persons feeling, oh, I thought they say it was going to be. But I wanted to kind of bring it back to something that you both said, both Glenville and Militia, where you mentioned a livable wage. And we've heard the terms, minimum wage, livable wage. What is the difference? Is there a difference? And what is this committee tasked with looking at if there is a difference?
I've said the other day, and maybe we can adopt it, a minimum living wage. I've just blended the two, because you can't have one without the other. The minimum wage is whatever is set by law, and the living wage, in other parts of the world, some companies might say, the minimum wage is 5, but we understand the living things that need to happen, so we pay our employees 7, right? The living wage is up to the actual employee, but we have been tasked to work out a minimum wage. But in all of our in our very first conversation, I think that we hashed it out about minimum wage and living wage. What's the difference? Should we be doing living wage and should we not be doing minimum wage? And honestly, there is no.
For me,
there is none.
It's like splitting hairs. It's futile to try to distinguish between them. But the government runs this country, right?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, true. That's true too. But the Premier, in his budget speech, spoke about a living wage to show the respect. I can't remember exactly. I could find it if I want to,
Okay.
To show the respect to the lower employers among us, right? And he used the word a wage that I could live on.
Right.
Well, I interpret it to live on as living wage.
Right.
The government of Angola wants a living wage. If we wrong, tell us we wrong.
Okay.
One of the things that in my mind, when I hear livable wage or living wage and minimum wage, and when I'm thinking about the economic situation that we are in now, and how does that kind of play? You're talking about inflation, because a minimum wage, again, we are only using hypotheticals here. But if a minimum wage was set at, say, $5 an hour 3 years ago, would that be a livable wage in this 3 years later?
We spoke about that as well, because they were talking about the federal wages in the U.S. And in the U.S., anybody who've lived in the U.S., there's a federal minimum wage, and then there's also state, right? And whatever we are able to come up with, it has to be something that progresses with the time. It cannot be something that is stamped in stone and stays there forever and ever and ever, because you have inflation, and we all know, that Angola is a very expensive place to live in. Tuna fish is $4.25 right now. It's more.
Some places a little bit
I think it's less than dog food. It's less than dog food, right?
That's why I ain't got no dog.
So you gotta be mindful of these things, and there are portions, and these are things that we also have to consider when we're looking at whatever the number is for minimum wage, because we also have to consider what persons are able to live on.
Right.
You know, back in the day, you have persons who have flour and water and oil and whatever, and you can make loaves and loaves of bread, but the modern person, no disrespect to our modern people, we don't have the time.
Out of skill.
We don't have the time. We might have the skill, but we don't have the time.
Last time I tried to bake bread, I made a baseball bat. It's not gonna work.
Right? So we also have to take these things into consideration. If we come up with, whatever it is that person or that family able to live on whatever it is? Because you also have to be able to buy quality food as well.
Are you considering taxes? Are you considering travel? Are you considering the care of a household in terms of the rearing of children when this minimum wage is concerned? Are you considering health expenses?
Yeah, we spoke
Are you
about
considering the fact that a lot of persons in certain industries don't carry a health or life insurance for themselves?
You could consider too the young men or women who come from a poor family. They don't have a history of higher education, and this is the one that you can't afford to fall through the cracks.
Right.
So you get a government scholarship, but every now and then I call home to mom and dad for a couple of dollars, the college life.
Yeah.
I want to be able to send him a holiday change.
Right.
Feel proud, have pride. My son is making it, and my daughter is making it, all of that. It's in the exact science and livable. We mightn't be able to define it a certain way, but we know it when we see it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Your basic health you call it, but you have running water, you have inside toilets, not no more latrines.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And do you have running water all the time?
Yeah,
plumbing, full-time electricity,
those kind
all
of
of
things,
those things.
And then and we spoke about that we also electricity, and with the inflated cost of how much electricity is now,
Yeah.
and all of these things we've spoken about. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is not an easy task. It is not going to be an easy task. And I think somebody said there was a reason why it's been kicked down the road all of this time.
People are afraid. People are definitely afraid to address it. I've had people come up to me on the street and said, "Glenn, I hear you on the minimum wage committee. We want $9.50 per hour, nothing less than that." I said, I can't make that decision on my own. We're having meetings on a continuum. When we decide what is livable and what is comfortable, we will come to the public, we'll go to government. Government has to mandate it, put it in law, and we go from there. If an employer wants to give an employee $1 more increase on what the minimum wage would be based on their services, it's up to them. That's their prerogative.
You still got to negotiate.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the absence of collective bargaining, everybody on their own.
Right.
You still got to make your case for why I deserve X amount of dollars. The hell with minimum wage, in fact.
Yeah.
I passed minimum wage long time.
Every sector, we have got to look at it with a fine-tooth comb, go over it. I mean, we got to go down.
And when you go down, you find something else, and you got to go down that rabbit hole
because
to be able to come back out. It's a lot of things.
Before you can come up with anything. It's a lot of things we have to
And minimum wage is only part of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
What's this bigger picture?
Social safety nets. Minimum wage is only part of it. I don't have the evidence at this minute, but I'll bet a lot that minimum wage ain't gonna alleviate poverty on its own.
It can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your studies, are you able to share any insight to Anguilla's poverty level?
It's the patchy.
Patchy?
Yeah. It's patchy. The information I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think the information is a bit old too. The assessment was done quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And we didn't have no COVID yet.
So this is what I'm getting to
We didn't have
know.
no GST yet.
Okay, good. This is what I'm getting to know. Are you guys taking these stuff into consideration? How are you taking these stuff into consideration? Because historical context, of course, current affairs, but where we're going. I just see them bomb the German embassy. Yeah, with Russia and this Ukraine war, like where are we really going? I saw somebody say, I don't know how true it is, that the US bought 260 million vials or something like that of
Vaccine,
something for nuclear.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
If Russia decides to use nuclear arms, America will be ahead of the game. So all of that, they have that set in place beforehand.
This is where I'm going with this. The world that we're living in is not going to be the same world we wake up in tomorrow. So how do you account for that?
Sometimes I ask myself, this whole minimum wage committee business, if we ain't looking too far, I will be honest with you. Sometimes I ask myself that, right? If you got a curious mind, you ain't got no option. Because when facts hit you, ignoring them in the solution. You ain't got no choice. You ain't got no choice to think about the medical care of working class people. You ain't got no choice.
Yeah.
You got to think about it. It's just, you ain't got no choice but to realize that, wait a minute, minimum wage mightn't be a good tool to try to redistribute income, you know. Don't use that as a redistribution of income tool, you know. Because the receivers of minimum wage, well, if they had collective bargaining, they would have some power collectively. But individually, you will have small fry against who you might have to be dealing with.
Yeah.
In the larger scheme of things. That's why they talk about the word vulnerable. The most vulnerable among us.
Yeah.
Right? When you ain't too well educated, ain't too literate, right? And when you wasn't working, you take that time to make some children. You got about 7 of them, and you only turn 33, right? And it's time to go get a little job, right? And then you need to work. Hey, that's vulnerable. You may take what you get, because you really need it bad.
Subsistence, then the person would have to depend on government for subsistence, to be able to maintain their family. That comes from where? It comes from taxes. The persons who are employed now, you have 4,000 people employed, paying for the other 11,000 out of the 15,000 of us. So all of those things you have to take into consideration.
And then we also have to be mindful of if this person has the 7 children, which is a lot.
I see the look on the surface and you said that's 7.
That's a lot. And the thing is too, we also have to look at the education aspect. Thankfully, education in Angola is free.
Right.
But free-ish, but if you have 7 children, there is uniforms for at least 5.
That's what I said. Free-ish.
And you have to then be able to provide uniforms for those 5. Now you might have hand-me-downs, but all kids don't go the same.
And textbooks.
Right? And textbooks. And we know how that textbook story runs. Right? So you gotta be mindful. And let me tell you, when we started this conversation, we started saying, okay, we can get a minimum wage. And then I think somebody came in and said, but what about this? And then what about this? And then what about this? And then what about this? And that's when everybody went, oh my God.
Yeah. It hits you.
How are we going to get through this?
Yep.
And then when you have somebody like Dr. Fay, when you start talking and then he's like, wait. But if we can think about that, we got to think about this and how this affects this. And then you realize you're back in the rabbit hole again. When you thought you were coming out somewhere, you're right back in it. And then we have all of this literature that we have to read. And when you're reading it, you're reading it, and you're reading it, and you're reading it, because it's a lot. And then when we try to compare, because Angolans, we like to compare. We compare ourselves to other Caribbean islands and the US. We love to compare ourselves with the US and the UK. But in those places, there are social protections. Right? In Angola, we don't have any social protections. So all of those things we have to consider. And when Dr. Foy said that if an employee makes $186 a week, that's automatic
You qualify
for stabilization levy. You know,
universal social levy.
Yeah, because I ain't going nowhere.
It's about time.
it's already stabilized.
Yeah, it's already
I didn't get that memo.
Setting concrete, Grenville
I
done
didn't get that
plastered,
memo.
paint rebar and steel. She's solid. She ain't
Wow. And then you still have Social Security.
Okay.
And then so imagine, right? You have 7 children, and God forbid, is this person a single parent? Please tell me no.
Okay, no.
Okay. So we have 2 incomes. Let's say that one of those children is 18 or 16, because 16 you're out of school at 16, right? So you have potentially 3 incomes coming in to this household. But like Mr. Foy mentioned, all of these persons are on the lower extremities. So the reading and writing isn't well. The ability to negotiate isn't well. So everybody is just right there. And then you have the situation where everybody is walking. And you know what's going to happen? You have 3 walkers, and then you have the kids home. And then 2 of those walkers are working 2 jobs. Right? So we still have those other kids, 6 kids,
Families got to be maintained.
that we have to figure out who is taken care of, and homework and all of these things. So the cycle continues, because there is nobody within that family who can somehow step out. Hopefully one of them get a government scholarship to go off and whatever, make better of themselves. But then that person is tasked with supporting the rest of the family. So, it's tough. It's really, really tough, and it's not something that, and I wish that this was something that was tackled before, but I don't even think that if it was tackled before, we would have been ready for this 2000 century.
Everybody seems to be afraid of it. Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I'm glad that you say that, because I've heard, that it's been started, looked at, and put aside, and I wanted to really get an idea as to what, if anything, this new committee met as it relates to minimum wage in Angola. Is there anything that was tangible that you can say? I know you said you look at a lot of literature. Is there anything tangible that was handed to this new committee to say, look, we've had previous persons looking at this, they were able to produce maybe a small report, a 1-pager, a 1-liner, and is there anything that you were given, or are you starting completely from scratch?
Dr. Foy?
Starting from scratch.
From the bottom of the wall.
Let's say you had a committee in the past that did produce something. That committee would have been like 10 years ago. At least 10 years ago. 10 years ago, a long time.
Yeah. Last year was a long time.
Yeah.
Anything from that era will become irrelevant.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It was no fault of the committee. Those ideas would have moved on from them.
I must say something though, and Mrs. McCool-Niles, she said she wished that would have happened before. Now, I operate on a different level of understanding when it comes to faith and alignment. I tell people my Christianity set up a little different. Because Jeremiah 1 says, like, before your family, your mother belly, God knew you plan out your life. That's what it say. So that means he knew that you had to be sitting here. He knew that you had to be on this committee. Because what I'm hearing from everyone in this room, and I don't know if you hear it, Gleneva, is they have humanized what they're looking at. They're not looking at it. You're in economics, right?
Among other things.
Among other things. I see why I say that about, but I know he's a disciplined and trained economist, among other things. So figures, trends. He's not looking at it solely from that lens. From what I gather, he's the one saying, listen here, but this person got these emotions to deal with, they got this exposure, and I think those are the things that really need to translate into what a living wage looks like for Angola.
If you don't have that in the approach, right? As an economist, and if I want to argue, I could argue for weeks. The supply and demand for labor determine the price of labor, which is the wage.
Right. Yeah.
We believe in the market economy, right?
Yes.
So that's the market. What we're saying is that the market will succeed 99% of the time.
Right.
But on this one with wages, because of vulnerable people, we ain't going with the market. Can I tell you? If somebody want to really make an argument and debate you that the market is the way to go in terms of wages, they might not win the argument, but man, you're gonna say to yourself, that person made some points, so
Right.
that person wasn't talking foolishness. That person know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree, but that person know what I'm talking about. Because this minimum wage thing, the opposing points of view ain't rubbish.
No.
Don't think the rubbish. Don't think the fella who you hear talking loud and saying that he ain't want no minimum wage because of so and so and so. Don't jump to the conclusion that he's talking foolishness. Because what he may be saying could catch on too. Right?
Right.
If you convince somebody, right, that if you don't settle for minimum wage, right, you could get more. You could get more, you know. You could get more. Don't settle for no minimum wage. There's a possibility that you could get more. And that person go on that principle, right? When the fridge home empty, and it's a Friday, and you didn't work this week, right, for the same minimum wage, right? That's a different ball game. That's reality, you know. That ain't no theory. You know what I mean? That ain't no theory. This is real life.
It brings into saying that, into force of saying half a loaf is better than no bread. Because if you sit down and say, I ain't working for nobody for less than $100 a day.
You're back to that $100.
But you sit, here's the number to work with. Easy figures to work with. Okay. But you sit home for 4 weeks because you didn't want to work for $100 a day, $500 a week. You think you deserve $150 a day, but you prefer to stay home. To make what point?
And feed 7 children.
To make what point? You're not making any point. You're making yourself look like an idiot. Because half a loaf is still better than no
Everyone
bread.
used to say so a lot.
Yeah,
God
half a
bless him.
loaf is better than no bread. You go out there and you earn and you increase, your knowledge increases, so one day you will get that $100 comfortably. But until you qualify, you have to qualify for it.
And that also raised the point of the necessity and the need. And this is where we were talking about immigration as well. You know, persons are going to work for what they need to be able to get. And if it is that Glenn says to me, I'm going to pay you $50, and Wycliffe decides, I ain't want more than 100, I need a 50. He don't need 100, so I go in for the 50. So it also sets a trend. It makes Glenn feel that, okay, I ain't paying no more than 50 because I can get the job done.
And even speaking of immigration, you got to consider, when you talk about immigration, we're talking about foreigners and locals, right? That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
You got to ask the question, are foreigners and locals competing for the same jobs? They might be on the same angular, right? But are they competing for the same jobs?
Not necessarily.
And we have to be real about that conversation. And I don't think a lot of times we are very honest, and we're not honest with ourselves. We're not honest with ourselves that we're not, for the most part, competing for the same jobs. Maybe at the higher end of the spectrum.
In some instances.
Maybe.
You guys?
You have it in the higher end of the spectrum as well as the lower end of the spectrum.
Depends on the industry.
Maybe not in the middle.
Depends on
Maybe not in the middle.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the middle, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I'm keenly aware that there's a vacuum that exists and a need that exists to be filled in Anguilla for, especially when it comes to I don't hesitate to say this because I know, because I've asked, because I've done the research. When it comes to caretakers and domestic help, that vacuum exists. And the question is, and the reason I can appreciate this whole conversation, because the question is, you have that vacuum that exists where you don't have persons to fill those needs on island. And so then you start to say, well, okay, I can get persons to come in, do that work, but I could pay you whatever. How do you, because we're speaking the whole gamut of social protections. Because, okay, and who's really going to make a issue and a noise that you're
And it's
not
also not required. There's no evidence of it as well.
yeah.
The disparity,
Yeah.
you know, from country to country. What I'm going to pay, maybe an Anguillan would be different to what I may pay a Vincentian or Antiguan or somebody. But
And all of these
they're doing
jobs
the
are
same
also
thing.
same
They're
way
doing
under
the
the
same
table.
thing, so they should
Yes.
be paid the
same
same
thing.
wage.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing, providing the same service.
You are going to touch a lot of cons, and I ain't talking about the field I just planted there in the Valley Bottom. When you're talking about that, because what you guys on this committee, what I'm hearing is you want something that's fair, that's
course.
equitable.
Of course, that's
There's
what it's
a
all about.
difference.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. I often draw to mind this little meme where there are a bunch of crates, and the taller guy, like the father, he can already see over the fence, but they shared it equally.
And that's the difference between equality and
E-
equity.
Yes, so they share the crates equally. Everybody is standing on the crate now. His whole upper torso is over the fence. The child still can't see, and just the crown of the head of somebody else is to the top of the fence. They still can't see. And then the other image had where the child was standing on enough crates so he could see over. The other person needed one, and the father, whoever the male, was standing just on his feet, knowing that he can see. That equity, is that the focus of this minimum wage committee?
Well, equity got to be the focus. The focus it can be equality. The reason why the CEO at Progress Report making more than the sweeper, they got reasons for that. The sweeper can never make as much. The sweeper can never make as much as the CEO. But.
Like if I put me in a hat.
but you want the sweeper to get the optimum amount that is supposed to come to him or her.
For their services, for their service.
Right,
You have to keep that in mind for their service, because they're providing a service
Correct.
that has to be paid for. And it's not, just anything ship-shoddy. If I come to your office and I see it look unkempt and untidy, I look around, I don't want to stay in there too long. I don't want to stay in there too long because the environment to me wouldn't be healthy. I don't want to be there.
Right.
But once I come in and I see it, the physical appearance, the first thing we look at, because you only get to make a first impression how many times? Once. So it's the first impression.
And I think Mr. Crabtree on Monday would have used a great example. I've never heard this example
Yeah,
before.
with a poet.
I've heard other examples, but not one quite like this. What he would have said is, if you have a garbage collector and you have a poet, both of whom quit on the same day, who are you going to look for?
The garbage collector.
Right? And people don't realize how important the garbage collector is. Let the garbage collector decide, I ain't going to work today.
Okay.
Right? So you let your sweeper come in here and not come in here today.
Yeah.
You realize how important your sweeper is until she or he does not show up to work.
And I have an appreciation for that, but I have something that's gonna kind of like throw a little spoke here now. We talking all these fancy words. We talking all these very poignant, pointed topics, aspects of this minimum wage that we are living wage that we're looking at. If you want to call
Minimum
it
living wage.
minimum living
Minimum
wage.
living wage.
How many before I go to how many institutions have you been interacting with labor? And I ask this for this reason. How many persons working in Anguilla have job descriptions that their wage, their duties are pegged to? What's the job description for a mason?
Mason, there's certain things he has to be able to do.
Is this documented somewhere?
Unsupervised.
Unsupervised. Alright, so we got into some details now. Is this documented and is this documented anywhere? Does the definition or the job description for a Mason differ? Depends on which contractor you're working with.
That would have to come out of the labor department. They would have to define for us what is a Mason, not what a Mason should be paid.
What a Mason does.
What a Mason does.
So do we have those? Do we should be able to do? Do we have those things?
We have gone into that realm.
We haven't gotten there yet.
We haven't gotten there.
Well, you guys have some work to do still.
So
the minimum wage ain't coming next week.
No,
Ivan has jumped.
not the week after.
But Ivan has kind of jumped to where I was going to go with this. How long has we didn't get this in the beginning, but we're going to get it in the end. How long ago was this committee established? And what is your mandate in terms of timelines, timeframes? And is it?
Let me answer it like this, right? The time frame that we put together, right, is of much shorter duration than the original mandate.
Oh.
Okay.
It's of much shorter duration.
Do you feel that is attainable with all the rabbit holes that you find yourself going down?
Yeah, I think it's attainable. When you say it's unattainable, comes self-fulfilling easily. So if you finish 2 weeks later than what I had suggest,
that's fine.
You could also finish 2 weeks earlier.
That's fine.
You know, so you gotta visualize the end. You gotta start to see the end. You gotta start to see the end incrementally. You don't see the end from the very beginning. Because you do nothing yet. You see the end keep coming closer, you know. And like I was saying the last day, because all of us occupy differently, right? We gotta somehow get into some long sessions every now and again. Maybe a Saturday, you just work all day from 9 till 8 the night.
So who gonna feed you when you're working all day, because then that requires money?
You had to eat, if you were alive, you had to eat anyway. So let's don't make that issue. You had to eat
You
anyway.
actually find food a lot quicker when you're in those circumstances. Yep.
Yeah.
The food is set up before the meeting starts.
So the commitment has been whatever it takes, we're gonna get this done.
Yeah. Because we don't hit the roadblocks. When I say the roadblocks, we don't hit the bumps that you could have said, "Bye, are you too old for this?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not my regular.
But that's not within you. You don't back down from a challenge.
Not yet.
But I do like this because, you know, at the beginning, and usually we do a brief, and sometimes we may ask some questions before, and I intentionally did not do that today because a lot of this information is brand new to me, just as it would be for our listeners, and I wanted to take that perspective, the perspective of someone who has not heard about a lot of this information before. So for persons who are in those situations and they're looking forward to the day when a minimum wage is established, what kind of time frame are we talking? A year, 2 years? And I know you don't want to commit to, but abroad.
It's in a year.
Okay then. So I think we can be satisfied with it's not a year.
It's in 3/4 year. No closer. No.
Okay.
No closer than that.
No closer. He ain't bringing us no closer. But that is good because I think people do need and something that they can look forward to. And your mandate is to produce a report.
Oh, the rate going to be the last item on the report.
So you're gonna give you everything.
Yeah,
for us.
there are people who are actually depending on us to produce this, you know. There are people who are waiting to see what the outcome will be because it's gonna either impact them negatively or positively.
And hopefully
there are people
it's
waiting for this.
And what we're looking for is the negative impact to be temporary. before they transition into success too. We don't want winners and losers.
We want winners.
If this is Anguilla, you can't be hurting this one to fix this one. Hey, the hurt gone somewhere else, and it's still Anguilla.
I gotta ask a question about that. Sorry, Granny, before you think. Are we looking at, when we talk about the social impact, are we looking at possible increases in theft, violence, and these type of things? For instance, several shows back we talked about the impact of COVID. When persons were home not working, the social impact, the abuse, the mental impact. Are we considering those factors where minimum wage is concerned?
I'm going to give you an unscientific answer about the first part. People who are predisposed to steal and rob are those who rob.
Say that one more time.
People who are predisposed to steal and rob, they are the robbers.
You do it at any time.
Yeah. When Anguilla was in a boom, they had robbery still.
True.
Like I say, this is unscientific. This is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Thieves and robbers are predisposed to do that. But we often think about them as being dumb and this and that. No, they could be really smart. They could really know that. They could be listening to the news like everybody else and hearing that so got things about COVID and then they're arguing the government about minimum wage and the poor people and all that. And then that people might rob, okay. Let me rob them and blame it on my head. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
You have to look at it from a different standpoint. The people who are doing some of the robberies, they're not people who don't see television. Because they look and they learn. They look and learn. When somebody would go and you have an R, the letter R, they take off the bottom piece and turn an R into a P, or they take a P and turn it into an R and change the code on a vehicle registration plate. So these guys are smart, they're not dummies. You know, idiots going out there and rob because they know, they sit down and they observe.
Yeah, some of them.
They absorb what's going on. Some of them. They absorb what is going on and they know what they're doing. So they've gotten smarter. They've gotten smarter.
That is true, but are we prepared to make these adjustments? How do you factor in now people's response to this and how much educating you plan to do as the committee? Not the consultation. I ain't concerned with the consultation because you can consult from now till forever. But after this
the final,
the education as to why, because everybody's gonna feel is your opinion.
Yeah. So after the report is submitted, right? We engage for a bit after, right? Well, you can't make this your life work either.
No, they can't afford you.
You gotta really stop at some point. You know what I mean?
You can say they can't afford you. you touched that earlier. I just read between the lines. You touched that earlier. You ain't no sweeper. I understand.
That's a good way to put it.
No, for real, no. With the expertise that everybody in this room brings to the table. How long you in construction?
25 plus years.
25 plus years. Put that on your resume. How long you in hospitality? A business owner, entrepreneur. How long you...
A retired person.
And them the ones you can't afford because they don't know what money look like. So let's be honest. You know you're doing...
too?
You say electrician too?
I did. I have a diploma in electrical engineering.
You stop right there because then we're going to have to pay for a time in this afternoon. What I'm saying is the level of expertise and insight in this room is not fly by night. The committee is strong and structured, and I appreciate that. But again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, and I appreciate this. You've humanized it. I hear heart. I hear care. I hear purity in intent for Anguilla. And I'm hearing that this is not going to be 9 months away. That's what you said.
Remember, all of us at the end of the day will be impacted in some way or the other. I am an employer. She's an employer.
Right.
Dr. Foy at some point in time will build something somewhere again. He's going to have to employ somebody. So all of us will be impacted by this.
Why you don't know that I read an employer? I read an employer.
Okay.
Yeah, employer.
So I think what I'm getting is that one way or the other, we're all going to be impacted. But the goal of this committee is to ensure that we're all impacted positively.
Yeah.
Even
And
if
fairly.
even if there is a period of negative impact that we want to lessen the negative impact, and lessen the amount of time that you're impacted.
You know, when you transition into something new, right? It doesn't be easy. You know, GSC, you've been sleeping one night without it in force.
I didn't sleep that night.
Looming large in your face.
No, listen, hang on.
A minute after 12.
A minute after 12. That ain't no joke. I didn't sleep that night because you know they thought they said it was going to be Armageddon, so I was just looking out, waiting for this meteor to drop down. I'm not even joking. But with the intensity of the moment, in all honesty, no sleep that night for me because I had to be.
Well, at the end of this committee will be sleeping. Because we know that we would have done our best and we would have done so fairly. Because at the end of the day, let's just be honest, you could never pay somebody enough money for what they say they're worth.
That's true.
Right? So,
I want to be paid in diamonds.
again, my reiteration, there is nobody on Anguilla who pays anybody in diamonds. Especially not the government of Anguilla.
Tell me about
CEO
it.
sweeper.
So he's gonna pay you in diamonds. So you know, at the end of the day, we would just like to come up with, and maybe we should stop calling it a number. We're going to come up with something that is going to be acceptable and fair and reasonable
And defendable.
It will be defendable. It will be defendable because our chair keeps saying it has to be evidence-based. Everything, and that's why we're here. That's why we're in that rabbit hole that we're in, because he refuses to have anything not be evidence.
And you put up on no rabbits yet.
And I haven't seen a white rabbit yet.
I'll say, you spoke about how things are difficult and the implementation of new things, and this is not something that is new to me hearing from Dr. Foy, because I served with Dr. Foy on the select committee of the House looking at GST.
Yeah, that was
And we're not going down that rabbit hole, but having served with him in that capacity, I can appreciate and know that the work he's going to put into this minimum wage committee is not going to be quote unquote half beat, but we know that it is going to be
Real work.
his work. It's going to be real, and it's
not his. Ours.
But I say that because I know that the ethic that he has, if somebody is slacking, he'll pull you up by your bootstraps and tell you, we got to get to it. And so I have full appreciation for the work of this committee, and I can honestly say that whatever is produced by this committee, I think I will feel comfortable.
Tell Glenn we're recruiting new members, he must volunteer.
You and Glenn to have that conversation, and not this Glenn, you and the other Glenn to have that conversation.
So you see this how we're getting in trouble because we done gone over time, but I gotta ask this question. Are you taking into consideration how entrepreneurs will be able to price themselves based on this now?
Hence
You're asking for Glenn?
Hence me saying earlier that business owners have to sit down and ask themselves what I really need for my business. Because what you actually might need might be yourself for like a year, and with no paycheck.
That's it.
Right? And you trying to figure out your way through the roads, and you might figure, okay, I really need somebody to be able to do more. And whether it's that one person or it's two people, you have to figure that out based on your business. Now, if you got a restaurant, it's you, your server, your cashier, hypothetically, right? What are you missing? Your dishwasher, your cook, right?
Staff.
Your floor staff. So you got that one server, yourself, and your cashier.
And a restaurant, that food van.
It's a restaurant though.
Okay.
So it means that Me behind here washing dishes while I trying to flip an egg, right? My cashier on the floor serving people because my server cleaned the bathroom. You understand? So these are things you have to figure out before. And though entrepreneurship is great, you know, you have to figure all of that out before. And some of us rush into it and we figure it out after. And that's fine too. But we have to figure it out, especially when it comes to minimum wage. Because once this gets implemented, the people that are going to be the most impacted are the small businesses. The big businesses already somewhat got it together because they already have established their own minimum wages within their own organizations. And it might just be a matter of fact of how much higher they go and how many staff they cut, unfortunately, or how many staff they add, right? But then the small businesses where there's only 1 and 2, or there's only 3 and 4, those are the ones who are going to be heavily impacted because labor is your highest cost.
Well, one of the things that I'm hoping for, you don't have the antagonism between workers and the payers of minimum wage. No we against them kind of atmosphere. You know what I mean? So the people who paying the minimum wage gotta be seen it as being beneficial to them business into the Angular, which we love, in which we want to build a new one of and all that, right?
We're all to build
all that, right? So every now and again you'll have an opportunity to prove your love for Angular, right? Every now and again. And minimum wage is one of the opportunities. Apart from economic and all that, the less fortunate among us and all them kind of things that are here, and everybody got nice things to say. A good time to prove it. Who gonna make it sacrifices? Who willing to make it sacrifices for Angola? Not big sacrifices. Just some smaller sacrifices. Who willing to not say, you know what? I come up with a minimum wage. Okay, that's what the law say. Okay, now put a law on me now for doing this. This is how I gonna get around it. Put a law on me now. Cause everything I'm gonna be doing is legal. But everything I'm gonna be doing is to get around the minimum wage, and they're gonna be all legal.
So where's the teeth? Where's the teeth?
Where's the teeth? Let me show you where the teeth doesn't matter. If I need 4 people to work, right? If I need 4 people to work, and I feel your minimum wage too high, well, I employ 2, and I give them something more than the minimum wage. I don't got them sweeten already because I think no collective bargaining. I don't give I told them getting some more money to carry home every Friday. They need no collective bargaining. And when I give you more money, I could ask a little more from you too. Wrong and I ain't broke no law. But I need 4 people. So your employment statistics gonna number 2. You know what I mean? That's why I'm talking about the teeth. What teeth you gonna put in there?
Not false teeth. Because I don't know how you address that. I honestly don't know how you address that.
Well, you gonna address it?
This conversation, and I know we were going to get into this issue because we always go for a lot of time. Because the conversation is so important and so riveting, because I can see why the committee has its work cut out for it, because you can continue to go and go, and you know, there are questions that are right there for me that I want to ask, because Dr. Foy keeps mentioning the collective bargaining and the absence of collective bargaining. And let's put it down in layman terms. We don't have no unions. We refuse to join unions. We refuse to create unions. And so, in the absence of such, this is what we have.
You know how much easier the conversation would have been if you had that representation for those level of workers we're talking about?
That was functioning.
Yeah.
I think there are people there to represent them, but does it really function? That's the problem.
So,
does it function?
I'm interested in the voice. We here right now about here. Nobody here on no minimum wage. You got no minimum wage. So we here talking about the people who come in that category, right? how we gonna hear from the people themselves?
Are you allowed
On the
to
street.
Who are also
On
not
the
going to
street.
come to the consultation.
Yeah.
That's
And this
and
is,
I, 'cause-
this is
and
where
that
we have
is-
to go to them.
that is that
We
is
have to
that
go
is
to
the
them to
concern.
find out their
We
feedback
have to meet them where they are.
as to what they expect from us,
So
what
you-
they would be looking
So
forward
you
to.
walking on the construction sites, you going in the hotels, you going down in the boatyards. This is stuff that you're doing actively. How you getting that information?
We will have to get
We haven't gotten there
We
yet.
haven't
but
gotten-
we-
you haven't gotten
I
there yet.
know.
We
I
haven't
think
gotten there yet.
you're missing the point that we're still going like
Yeah,
this.
we haven't gotten there yet.
We're still going like this.
I'm waiting there with truth.
Hey,
So-
before you go on somebody's site, right?
Uh-huh.
You got a family request of the person that to come there and give them the confidence about confidentiality and all that. This, and
I understand. Right? That's why you're doing this in Namika. Right? You know me already. Yo, come here. What you
Information
doing?
I could do that too, but
Only go one way.
We want to make sure that when this community moves on, there's actually paper trails.
so therefore, right?
Uh-huh.
Progress report,
Uh-huh.
Keystone Graves,
Uh-huh.
press conference, whoever else.
Yeah.
I know about them, But you ain't seen me for a while,
But I don't want you to say that because I was just about to.
No, I looking for follow-up.
I really hope when.
The follow-up could be in 6 weeks.
Oh, but not
follow-up,
before, definitely not before that. But you've already given me an idea as to a time frame, so I expect to have you back in less than 9 months.
Yeah.
So in less than a baby. So in less than a baby, we can continue this conversation. We can have a report that is comprehensive, one that is fair and balanced and looks out for the needs of the most vulnerable, as we've said.
And protecting whatever other interest without adversely affecting other interests that are involved in the process.
Yeah.
Can't hurt your nose.
Yes,
What-
no,
what-
so
what-
spite
what
your
the
nose,
thing
spite
is-
your face by cutting off your nose.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
and so
We wrapping up now. Just so I'm clear, you haven't gone out into the different sectors.
No,
You're
but
still going through all this reading. I guess you're looking at reports and minimum wage reports from other places in the
right here in the
region.
Caribbean.
Okay, so you're doing the groundwork now.
Yes.
You're looking at a plan. You're casting how much blocks and steel you need.
Evaluation, you're summing up everything,
Okay.
getting all the facts and papers, numbers,
But we
and
ain't
so
buy
on
a
together.
block yet.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus.
You got
so we're looking forward to the buying of the block stage next.
All right. And you'll come back by when you're buying the blocks.
At least when you're tying the ring beam, that's what you
We're
said.
surveying, quantities now. We're doing quantities. We're doing quantities right now.
Okay, fair enough. This has been an excellent conversation. You've given us a lot to chew on. I think it was quite different to what the radio stations would have carried. I think we got down into the meat of the matter. I think our audience and those who listen.
So now you're saying that you do the best interview.
Yes, of course.
It is most unbiased.
My most unbiased opinion. With all due respect and love for Mr. Keystone Graves, yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Progress report is where it's at. Just saying.
I like that.
This is where it's at. But
I like
this has been what I think our audience will appreciate. Just an honest conversation about where we're at. I hope that you have a light down in this rabbit hole that you're in. I appreciate wholeheartedly, I think I can speak for Gleneva too, the efforts that you've already made, the steps that you're already taking. I know the commitment within this room and by extension your committee is to see this thing through and make sure that the government has the requisite information to make a decision that's in the best interest of Anguilla, and I'm looking forward to it. Above all else, I'm looking forward to it. I know whatever the decision will be, I think everyone involved wants this to be positively impacting for us. So on that note, I want to thank you for being here with us on Progress Report. Gleneva runs this show. She's told you guys not in the black stage, at the ring beam. So however you figure that out, that means you guys will be back. Let us know whenever you're ready to start the consultations how we can get persons out. There are ways and means that can be done. It's going to be a little tough, especially with the season starting now. And then when you're probably trying to speak to person, it's going to be the height of the season. But if you're like Mr. Fire, he going to be down there stand up talking to the people in the cafeteria when they're eating lunch and stuff. You do what you have to do to get it done, but I think it's a good look. It's a good move for Anguilla. And on that note, anything from you, Gleneva?
No. As usual, this has been another great and excellent episode of Progress Report. Thank you all for being here.
I ain't shy either, boy. Great episode.
And our episodes are only made great by our guests, not us. We don't do the work.
This has nothing to do with our killer
our
looks,
guests.
our charming personalities. This has nothing to do with that.
It is definitely the conversations that we get to engage in.
I want to leave you out with this, right? Shareholder definition of service charge.
I ain't touching that with you today.
I don't want to touch it. I just tell you, put it in your consciousness.
Oh boy.
Because I wasn't going to ask you how
I wasn't going to answer.
You wasn't going to answer?
No.
And the hospitality person in the room, you ain't touching that.
Yeah. That's another hour. 70 minutes.
So we will save that conversation for
definitely
next
save that
time.
conversation.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Ivan?
This has been another excellent episode of Progress Report. Updates and conversations from the Government Information Service. See you next time.